Sir, my son has a tattoo just like yours. The chandelier light scattered diamonds across the Mercer Pavilion. Laughter rose like champagne and fell in gentle applause. On cue, a quartet tucked a Vivaldi phrase into the air. Marisol Vega kept her tray level and her eyes low, sliding through silk and tuxedoed shoulders toward the corner booth that anchored the room. Grant Mercer sat there with a practiced ease, a man whose name matched the building, whose smile could move markets and calendars. A donor touched his sleeve. A camera hovered. A server refilled a glass without being seen. Marisol stopped at the table, the smell of citrus and truffle rising from her tray. "Canapes, sir," she said, and the line held steady despite the tightness in her throat. Grant didn't look up. The cuff of his tuxedo shifted as he reached for a flute. In that narrow slip of fabric, she saw it. A small lantern inked in fine lines, 3 moths spiraling toward its light. Her breath caught. She had seen that exact lantern last week at her kitchen table, sketched 100 times in pencil margins, newly inked on a 16-year-old wrist that stirred soup and fixed a neighbor's broken latch. She felt the room's cold air and the hot push of a choice. She leaned closer, voice barely a thread. "Sir, my son has a tattoo just like yours." Grant's smile didn't vanish so much as harden. His eyes moved from the phone to her face, registering the uniform, the badge, the audacity. For a heartbeat, nothing changed. The chandelier kept throwing tiny suns across marble. The quartet kept its polished pulse. Then the glass slipped. It left his fingers with a small, helpless sound and shattered against the floor. A bright explosion of gold and shards that snapped every head toward the corner booth. Applause died in the air. The quartet missed its measure. Security lifted their gaze. Marisol's tray wobbled once, then steadied. She did not apologize. She did not step back. She glanced at his wrist again, at the lantern, at the moths, at the skin that matched a drawing on her refrigerator held by a magnet shaped like a lemon. "What did you say?" Grant asked, voice even and brittle. "My son," Marisol said, heat rising into her cheeks. "He has that tattoo. The same lantern, the moths." A man across the table smirked and caught himself. Someone whispered, "Not now." A woman put a hand on Grant's shoulder, as if etiquette could pack this moment back into its box. The room held its breath, weighing polish against pulse. Grant covered his wrist with his palm, as if the ink could be unseen. His gaze sharpened. "Who are you?" he said, and then as if the sentence belonged to a smaller room. "And who is your son?" "Marisol Vega," she said. "Leo. He volunteers at a place called the Workshop. He drew that lantern for months before he got it. He said it means carry light." The chandelier hummed. The quartet fell silent. Grant's jaw clicked once. Behind his stillness, something old and private moved. A tug he had starved under schedules and glass. He glanced at Nisha, the woman from his foundation, and something like calculation gave way to caution. "Not here," Nisha said quietly. "Not like this." Marisol held his eyes, because she had already decided not to be invisible. She could feel the choice hanging between them, delicate as a filament and just as bright. In the hush, her words seemed louder than the shatter. Grant exhaled through his nose, a man who had practiced control, discovering it had borders. He set the empty stem on the linen. He did not look at the cameras. He looked at the lantern, and then at the person who had named it. "Tell me," he said, "how your son came by that mark." Hours earlier, an alarm in a small apartment had torn the dark at 5, and a boy's pencil had traced a lantern in the half-light. Hours earlier, the alarm stabbed 5 a.m., and the dark swallowed the echo. Marisol pressed it quiet, felt the day's weight, and opened the notebook on her nightstand. Must, double shift, cash envelope, call pharmacy for Elena, pack Leo's lunch, maybe, 20 toward electric, wash uniforms. She set water to boil, folded eggs into tortillas, sliced a bruised apple, and wrapped breakfast in foil for the bus. Leo's sketchbook lay open on the table. A lantern sketched again and again, moths orbiting its glow. A flyer curled on the fridge. The Workshop, community hub. Carry light, leave no one. Orientation Saturday. Consent forms required. "Ma," Leo said from the doorway, hair wild, wrist bandaged to protect fresh ink. He kissed her head, grabbed a burrito, and unrolled the cloth an inch so she could see. Lantern, 3 moths, 1 wing tipped red. "It means we stay until people get home safe," he said. She touched the clean skin beside the tattoo. Carry light. Leave no one, he finished, and the room felt brighter than the bulb. They locked the door twice and took the stairs past doors, breathing coffee and courage. On the subway, she kept one hand on the envelope in her purse and one on the pole, counting stops like beads. At 125th, she kissed his cheek and sent him toward algebra and noise. He drifted into a group that made room as if they had practiced. At the restaurant, she switched shoes, tied her apron, pinned on her badge. Morning shift at the coffee bar. Evening at the pavilion. Must, she whispered to the mirror. Maybe, and let herself smile. Across town, glass bit the sky. Grant Mercer's office was a rectangle of view and money. The Hudson laid out like a certainty. His wall calendar pulsed in careful colors. Investment committee, media hit, donor briefing, Mercer Pavilion Gala. A trainer texted about a missed session. His assistant messaged, roll the sleeve down before cameras. He buttoned the cuff by reflex. Habit hid more than ink. 2 photos leaned against a pen tray. One, a younger Grant grinning behind a golden shovel. The other, a 12-year-old boy with sawdust in his hair, arm hooked around a dog, eyes bright like blue flame. He flipped that one face down and opened a deck someone else had labeled excellent. 12 billion under management looked crisp on paper. The day did not. Investors wanted speed and insulation from headlines. Staff wanted raises that matched rent. The foundation wanted results that fit a brochure. Somewhere in the gap stood Evan, 22, stubborn, brilliant, and not speaking to him. The last text refused to be deleted. I'm building things that hold people, not just numbers. If that sounds naive, maybe ask why you taught me to be ashamed of wanting it. Grant stared at the cuff, at muscle memory protecting a small private light. The lantern had arrived after a night of sirens when Evan said, "We can't fix everything, Dad, but we can carry light for each other." They went to a quiet studio on Avenue C and marked their wrists. Simple lines, no post. In the months after, Grant learned to keep the cuff low and the story lower. He paged through gala notes, press list, donor bios, a schedule that treated minutes like inventory. He excelled at days you could inventory. He failed at the ones that required being found. In the margin, he wrote 2 words and erased them twice. Call Evan. He wrote a third and left it. Listen. Nisha pinged about an AV check. He replied with a thumb he did not feel. Uptown, Marisol slid the rent ledger into a drawer like a fragile plate and tucked the workshop flyer behind a magnet shaped like a lemon. She packed rice and beans for dinner, slipped 2 bus fares into Leo's pocket, and walked him to the corner, where neighbors traded rides and jokes and the quiet promise that somebody would look out for somebody. Down the block, a man patched a tire. A woman taped a lost dog notice. A kid practiced an ollie and fell, laughing. It looked nothing like a brochure. It worked anyway. Marisol had first seen the lantern months ago on a mural near the workshop, buckets of paint sweating in summer heat while teens brushed light onto brick. Leo said an older volunteer drew it from memory, a signal for night walk crews who escort kids home. In Grant's foundation reports, a photo of the wall slid past his eyes, unrecognized and unchecked. Downtown, Grant practiced a smile in the reflection of a dark screen and rolled the cuff down another millimeter, hiding the lantern from the room and from himself. He told the mirror the line he tells donors when they ask why he built his pavilion. Spaces like this make generosity visible. He did not say the line that pressed his ribs in traffic and in elevators. I built rooms I can control because the rooms that mattered never listened to me. By noon, the city had warmed into thick noise. Marisol's feet bit through her socks. The coffee bar's steam fogged the glass. A delivery slowed the door. She stole 10 seconds to text Leo a heart and a lantern emoji and got back a photo of a homework corner in a crowded room. 4 kids crowding a worksheet. A caption, "Workshop after school, don't wait up." By 3, Grant's calendar had marched him to the car, to the stage, to the script. The pavilion would glow. The cameras would kiss. Words would stack like bills. He checked the cuff again and pushed it tight. 2 mornings had moved on separate rails, one driven by lists, one by calendars, toward the same chandeliered room, and a mark inked on 2 wrists for different reasons. What was the lantern's origin, really? And how had a neighborhood kid like Leo become part of a story Grant believed he owned? Back in the pavilion, the air still rang from the shatter. Crystal hissed across marble like rain that cut itself. Conversations stalled, then stacked into silence. Someone laughed too late, and the sound died mid-flight. Marisol held her tray level, shoulders square, shoes scuffed and steady. A VIP in a silver shawl flicked her eyes toward the service door. "Take it to the back, dear. Not here." Grant recovered a smile and aimed it at the room. Not at her. "Staff speak to managers," he said, as if reciting a spell. "Please return to your station." His cuff slid as he gestured, a small lantern flashing again. Marisol didn't move. "3 moths circle the lantern," she said. "One has a red wing. It's hidden in the line work, unless you know to look." Grant's jaw set. The muscle jumped once. The red wing was Evan's mark, a tiny rebellion only a handful had ever seen. He covered his wrist by reflex, then dropped his hand when the move felt like hiding from himself. Phones hovered at the edges of etiquette. Security shifted, adopting the posture that says everything is fine while preparing for the opposite. A donor coughed a warning. The quartet went still. "Who told you to approach me?" Grant asked, voice polished to ice. "No one," Marisol said. "You asked how my son came by the mark. His name is Leo. He volunteers at a place called The Workshop. They teach kids to build things and walk each other home." A man beside Grant chuckled without humor. "This is a gala, not a grievance desk. Put down the tray and let the adults manage the crisis." Marisol tightened her grip and kept her chin level. "I'm working," she said. "I saw a thing that belongs to my son, and I named it." Grant tried the old theater again. "We will address this in private. Please step aside." Marisol didn't move. He went colder. "The more you stand here, the less likely anyone will hear what you have to say." She breathed in and let the truth do the work. "Leo's lantern is on a wall near the workshop," she said. "Older kids call it the lantern line. They walk first graders to blocks where streetlights fail, and they log the routes. He drew it for months in notebooks, waiting until he had the hours. He says it means carry light, leave no one." A murmur moved through silk like wind through grass. Designer suits shifted. Eyes that had skimmed her now stuck. The line between performance and consequence thinned. Grant studied her face, as if he could read motive like a term sheet. "And the hidden detail?" he asked, making sure it was an accident. "The moth with the red wing. Why mention it?" "Because it matters to him," she said. "He told me the red wing is for the one who goes first and comes back. The others follow it home. He said not to post photos. He said it isn't a logo. It's a promise." Grant's fingers curled against the linen. Hunger and fear arrived together, old as fatherhood. Someone at the next table finally remembered to breathe. The quartet waited with instruments lifted like questions. Nisha Rao stepped from the edge of the scene with a clipboard and a calm built from 1,000 unruly rooms. Her eyes went from Marisol's tray to Grant's wrist to the semicircle of onlookers who were about to make this their entertainment. "Phones down," she said. "Not loud, very clear. Security, hold position. Mr. Mercer, Miss Vega, we're moving this conversation to the prep room. No public adjudications." A man bristled. "This is a gala." Nisha didn't turn. "It's also a workplace," she said. "We follow protocol or we cancel dessert. Your choice." Grant nodded once. The smallest admission that control had limits. Marisol drew a slow breath she hadn't noticed she was holding. Nisha angled her body so the crowd saw her back, and the pair saw a corridor. "Please," she said again, and the please carried authority rather than apology. Grant looked at the lantern one last time, at the red wing that had been Evan's, at the woman who had named it without fear. Then he stood. Designer suits parted. Servers paused. The room exhaled. Marisol stepped forward, tray balanced like a shield and a burden. She said Leo's name once more, quietly, like a light she meant to keep lit. They followed Nisha past velvet ropes and framed donor lists into a hallway that smelled like coffee and fresh paint. Behind them, etiquette stitched the hole in the room and pretended it had never torn. Before them, facts waited where optics couldn't edit. Who would own them, and at what cost? Marisol kept her pace. Grant kept his cuff lowered. Nisha kept the door ahead open with one palm in policy. In the doorway, a server tried to hand Marisol a replacement tray. She shook her head and passed it off like a weight she no longer needed to carry into this next room. Grant brushed a shard of glass from his cuff as if brushing off an era. Somewhere behind them, A polite joke landed, and the audience laughed, grateful for instructions. Up ahead, what mattered would not be staged. Nisha's badge caught the light. Her voice stayed even. "This way, Mr. Mercer." "Miss Vega." Then inside. Inside the prep room, the clink and chatter sealed off like weather behind a door. The air was cooler, citrus, and steel. Nisha set her clipboard on stainless and closed the latch. "No public adjudications," she said. "We follow protocol." Grant lifted his chin. "Unnecessary." "Necessary," Nisha said. "Names for the record." "Marisol Vega," Marisol answered. "Server, mother of Leo Vega, 16. "Contact for the workshop?" "Director Camila Duarte, off 147th and Amsterdam. Leo's there after school." Nisha wrote, "Letters deliberate. Mr. Mercer, I need to view the mark to document detail." "You may refuse." "You shouldn't." Grant hesitated, then rolled his cuff. The lantern lay in fine lines. 3 tiny moths spiraled. One wing, almost invisible, held a darker fleck, not quite black. Nisha leaned close without touching. "Micro-etch, left base," she said. "L3. Grant blinked. "You see it. It marks a service tier in lantern line," Nisha replied. "That's your son's notation, isn't it?" His voice lost polish. "Evan built it. He said a mark should carry responsibility, not cachet." Marisol steadied her tray on the counter. "Leo said the same. He told me not to post it." "You earn it," he said. Nisha opened a secure form on her tablet. "I'm shifting this from PR to compliance. That means no phones, no statements, and no names outside this room until verification. Miss Vega, do I have your consent to record and to contact the workshop? We won't use your son's full name externally without permission." "Yes," Marisol said. "State again." "Child's name, age, and a brief description." "Leo Vega, 16. Lantern with 3 moths on the left wrist. 1 moth has a red wing." "Any photos?" "No. He asked me not to." Nisha nodded. "Any urgent needs at home?" "Rent's covered this month. He has bus fare and dinner. He'll be at the workshop till 9. We're okay today. I didn't come for—" "I know," Nisha said. "We still note stability. Founder directives require immediate harm assessment." Grant stared at the door, where the room outside had resumed pretending. "If Evan tied Leo into this, there should be a record," he said. "Hours, routes, supervisors." "There should," Nisha agreed. "And there is, if the system was used." She unlocked the Foundation console. Lantern Line Ledger lives outside the Gala database on purpose. Marisol watched the screen wake. The room quieted to breath and compressors, her hands unclenched. "Whatever we find," Nisha said, "stays private until you say otherwise. If Leo is listed, we stabilize what needs stabilizing. If he isn't, we still call Director Duarte and hear her." Grant's mask slipped. "If he's listed, it means Evan put him there. It means service, not spectacle," Nisha said. "And it means obligations for us." Marisol whispered the phrase Leo had taped to their fridge. "Carry light. Leave no one." "Exactly," Nisha said. She angled the tablet away from any eyes but theirs. "Mr. Mercer, for the file, confirm the elements you recognize." Grant swallowed. Lantern with 3 moths, 1 red wing, L3 micro-etch, Evans tearing. "Acknowledged," Nisha said. She tapped to the search field. "Miss Vega, spell the last name again." "Vega, Vega." Nisha entered the data. "We will not discuss this in the pavilion," she added. "If confirmation arrives, we notify you both and the workshop before anyone else. No press, no donors." Grant nodded once, an admission that control had borders. "Understood." Nisha's pen stilled. "One more question, Miss Vega. Who introduced Leo to the Lantern Line?" "Older volunteers," Marisol said. "A girl named Joy, a boy called Finch. They said Director Duarte approves every shift." "Good," Nisha said. "That matches policy." The ice machine cycled. Somewhere beyond the door, applause found a new speech. In here, a ledger waited. Nisha drew a breath and pressed her thumb to authenticate. "We're pulling the record now," she said. "If Leo is in this system, we'll see who trained him, which routes he logged, and what support was promised." Grant exhaled through the tightness in his chest. "Then let's see." The answer wouldn't live on a stage, but in a ledger. Hours, names, routes, promises, and whether Leo had been seen, not staged. Nisha hit enter. The console bloomed awake under Nisha's thumbprint. A clean interface, no donor gloss, just fields that knew what mattered. A header locked into place. Lantern Line Initiative. Design Lead, Evan Mercer. Grant's shoulders changed a fraction. pride and regret pulling in opposite directions. Marisol leaned closer without meaning to, as if heat were coming off the glass. Nisha navigated past a splash page of rules written in plain language. Treat lantern wearers as crew. Verify identity in private. Stabilize urgent needs before paperwork. No hero posts, no donor walk-alongs. If you must choose between optics and safety, choose safety. Each line carried a little of Evan's voice, unvarnished and exacting. Search, Nisha said, more to the screen than to the room. She typed VEGA and waited a breath. A result populated. Viega Leo Stewart. Profile active, Tier L3. Volunteer ID, LL 7019. Mentor, pending assistance. Authorized site. The workshop, 147th Amsterdam Guardian. Marisol Vega. Consent on file. Last update, 2 weeks ago, by Director C. Duarte. Marisol's hand rose to her mouth and then fell. Steward, she said softly. He never used that word. It means he's not a client, Nisha said. He belongs here. The program exists to support the people who carry it. She opened the profile. Hours stacked into a quiet ledger. Night escorts, 86 food runs, 41 homework corner, 53 bike repair, 18 training module, safety, de-escalation, route mapping, bystander intervention. Routes logged scrolled beneath. Equal parts map and memory. Route 3, A, PS 181 to Lenox. Tuesdays, 6:38 o'clock. Escorted 3 first graders. Call out, Red Wing leads. Route 7C, St. Nicholas to 155th Wednesdays, 7 o'clock. 9:15 2 escorts. Noted broken streetlight at 7th and 153rd. Reported to 311, Route 9B, Amsterdam to Broadway. Fridays, 8 o'clock. 9:30 shadowed Joy. First time leading Red Wing. Grant read the lines as if they were a language he used to speak. He's logging exactly the way Evan designed it, he said. The note about 311. That's, Evan insisted every escort include a fix. Nisha tapped the microgrants tab. A modest list appeared. Less drama than groceries. Transit stipend, monthly Metro card reload, active tutoring credit, 12 hours used math physics, utility relief, eligible, not drawn safe walk shoes, granted purchased through approved vendor phone data boost for night shifts, authorized pending carrier. Assistance doesn't mean exposure, Nisha said. It's small, practical, consistent. Grant's jaw loosened. The Red Wing mentors are supposed to check in weekly, he said. Why is mentor pending? Nisha scrolled to a note buried 2 pages down. Mentor assignment delayed due to capacity. Interim oversight by Director Duarte. Recommend pairing with mechanical mentor for bike crew. Candidate, F. Ramos. That's a gap I should have closed, Grant said, the words tasting like admission. He built a system, and I put it in a glossy report. Marisol looked at the line about shoes and blinked. He didn't tell me, she said. He said the work should take care of the work. Evan wrote that, Grant said. He hated the language of charity. He wanted a ledger that made care feel like maintenance. Nisha clicked the directives tab again, letting the sentences sit in the air. Crew are not content. Private first, public maybe. If we keep people safe, the city can keep its speeches. Below the directives, a small link waited, almost invisible. Artifact field log number 27. Access, 2 officers, Guardian Steward. Nisha didn't open it. There's more, she said. But it requires you, Miss Vega, and your son, and a second officer. The system was built to be read with the people it's about. Marisol nodded, eyes on Leo's hours. He comes home late and never says why he's smiling. I thought it was a girl. Maybe it's a city that didn't need him, Nisha said, not unkindly. She returned to the profile and opened incident notes. The entries were small, human. Assisted elder with stairs at 152nd. Returned later with neighbor to install second handrail flagged unsafe crosswalk timing. Teens timed lights. Called DOT. Email logged walked sister a volunteer Finch home when bus stalled. Group vote postponed last route. Rescheduled all accounted for. Grant touched the edge of their counter and kept his hand there. Evan trained them to make little repairs, he said. Not just walking bodies, but tightening the city where it squeaked. Nisha looked from the screen to the 2 faces holding 2 different kinds of history. We need to do 3 things, she said. Verify Leo's ID against the Guardian consent. Stabilize what's already authorized. Assign a mentor. Marisol took a breath and provided Leo's birth date, school, and the last 4 of his student ID. Nisha matched each against the file. Verified, she said. Guardian consent is current. I'm moving the transit reload to today and activating the phone data boost so he doesn't go dark on routes. Miss Vega, do you want utility relief queued or do you have it covered? We're okay this month, Marisol said. Save it for someone who isn't. That's how this works, Nisha said. It'll wait without penalty. Grant watched the authorizations update with the fascination of a man seeing money behave like water in a clean pipe. Assign the mentor, he said. If F. Ramos is suitable, do it today. If not, I'll sit for training and take a slot. Nisha raised an eyebrow. It's a commitment. 1 hour a week minimum. No cameras, no commentary. Yes, Grant said. No cameras, no commentary. She typed, Mentor F. Ramos pending acceptance. Backup, G. Mercer require training. You're on the hook, she said. If Ramos can't, you don't get to delegate. Marisol looked at him, trying to reconcile the man whose name was on the building with the one volunteering inside a ledger. Why now? She asked. Because you got caught? Grant didn't defend himself. Because I was taught a language and then forgot how to speak it, he said. Because my son built something that works, and I didn't show up for it. Because your son did. Nisha printed a temporary support card and slid it across the steel. This covers transit and the data boost, she said. No branding. If anyone asks, it's a program card. Leo can sign for the shoes at the vendor. Marisol touched the card, not as prize, but as proof. He'll refuse a fuss, she said. Good, Nisha said. There won't be one. Grant leaned in and read a final note at the bottom of the profile. Crew note from EM. If this line bends toward spectacle, cut it and tie a new one. If we're doing it right, most people won't know we did anything at all. They'll just get home. He closed his eyes briefly, opened them, and exhaled. He writes like his grandmother, he said. Plain and sharp. Nisha logged the session, attached the verification, and locked the console. We'll schedule the artifact reading with Leo present, she said. You should hear Evan in his own words. Marisol looked down at the ledger one more time, at hours turned into a kind of map that didn't show on tourist apps. Why did he stitch kids like Leo into this? She asked. Not to accuse, to understand. How did he build it in a city that keeps pushing boys like him to the edges? Grant didn't answer. Nisha didn't either. The prep room hummed. Refrigeration and quiet work. On the screen, the link to field log number 27 waited like a door. Outside, silverware resumed its rhythm. Inside, the question stayed open, pulling them forward to the page where the person who made the thing could finally speak for himself. Nisha returned with a clear sleeve, cradling a battered notebook. The tape on the spine read, Field Log 27 in block letters. She logged the chain on her tablet, set the sleeve on the steel, and glanced at Grant and Marisol. Protocol allows the front matter without the steward, she said. The rest waits until Leo is in the room. Agreed. Grant nodded once. Marisol folded her hands to keep them from shaking. Nisha broke the seal, eased the cover open, and exhaled. Inside, a lantern sketched in pencils sat at the top of a page, moths like commas around the light. Beneath it, a sentence written with stubborn neatness. Carry light, leave no one. The next pages were maps drawn by hand, corners of uptown block by block, alleys marked with tiny X's, dots where a streetlight failed, arrows where a shortcut turned unsafe after dark. In the margin, tiny drawings, a thermos, a coil of bike chain, a pair of shoes with the treads shaded heavy. He would do this for hours, Grant said softly, as if he was in a quieter room. He drew routes until the pencil went flat. Nisha turned a page and found checklists that sounded like instructions for breathing. 2 deep breaths before you speak. If a kid is scared, walk slower, not faster. If you're hungry, the route will feel longer. Eat first. If the group keeps laughing, you're doing it right. A line underlined twice. The red wing goes first and comes back. Marisol leaned closer. He wrote that, she whispered. Leo says it like a rule. Midway through, a page carried a title written with the care people reserve for names. To whoever carries this light, and to my father, if he ever shows up. Nisha hesitated only long enough to meet their eyes, then read aloud. You aren't superheroes. You aren't cops. You aren't content. You're people who decided to stay. That's the whole job. Stay until the smallest ones feel big enough to get home on their own. I didn't invent this. I just drew it so we could see it. If you're holding this notebook, you probably didn't need anyone to tell you that. You already learned in other rooms that care works best when nobody claps. But because a lot of people like to clap, I am writing this down for the building that has my last name and the people who might forget how we got here. If you must choose between optics and safety, choose safety. If a donor asks to walk a route, say no. If someone wants a photo, ask them to bring soup instead. He described a night in winter when the cold bit like metal and the breath on their scarves turned the wool to ice. We were done for the night, he wrote, and it felt like failure because the last bus was late and the smallest one was crying with his hands jammed in his sleeves. Miss Vega from the corner brought a stock pot to the workshop stoop and ladled soup into paper cups until the kids stopped shaking. She told us to take seconds and then send us back out for one more loop. We don't save cities, just each other. That's enough. Marisol blinked twice, then covered her mouth. I made soup that month, she said. Lentils and garlic. The boy was Edwin, I think. He couldn't feel his fingers. Grant curled his hand around the edge of the table and didn't move it. He used the word father like a stranger, he said. More to the paper than to anyone. If he ever shows up. He didn't make it an invitation. Nisha read on. If my father is reading this, I hope he is reading it in a back room that smells like coffee, not in a lobby with a microphone. Dad, the lantern is not for you. It's not for me. It's for the kids whose names never make a donor deck. If you want to help, pay the lights and the people who turn them on. Don't repaint the sign. Don't rename the routes. If you show up with your sleeves rolled and your phone off. The next paragraph was smaller, ink pressed harder into the page. I used to think the opposite of fear was bravery. It isn't. It's company. The night I learned that, a man walked 3 blocks behind us without speaking, hands in his pockets, head down. He wasn't a threat. He was proof we weren't alone. That's the Red Wing. Go first, come back, and make sure somebody is walking behind. Nisha turned another page. Between route logs and notes on de-escalation, lived small memory fragments. Joy taught me to tie a scarf so it covers your ears without cutting off your hearing. Finch fixed a chain with a hairpin and 10 curses. Miss Vega told a joke so bad the first grader stopped crying to correct her. In the corner, a tiny moth had one wing shaded red. At the back of the notebook, a small square QR sticker had been pressed flat with clear tape. Nisha lifted the sleeve to reveal it, then looked to Grant and Marisol. I can open it on the foundation device, she said. No cloud, just a local copy, logged. Do it, Grant said. She scanned. A short video blinked to life on a muted screen. Evan sat at a plastic table, hoodie up, a chalkboard behind him crowded with arrows. He looked younger than the last photo on Grant's desk and older than a boy, eyes tired in the way people's eyes get when they love something that keeps needing them. He raised his hands in a kind of apology. If you found this, you're probably inside the building, not outside in the cold. That's okay. Somebody has to sit in rooms and make sure papers move. Just don't forget who the papers should move for. He smiled at something off camera, then returned to the lens. Protect volunteers without turning them into photo ops. No ride-alongs for donors. No last-minute speeches on the stoop. If a kid asks for a selfie, say yes. If a donor asks for a selfie, say bring pizza and leave it at the desk. If you must choose between a story you can tell and a shift you can staff the shift. And don't let anyone make the lantern into a brand. We didn't make it to sell it. We marked ourselves so we could find one another. The video ended as simply as it began. A hand covering the lens and a quiet thanks. Nisha closed the window and logged the play. The prep room's compressor hummed. Marisol wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. He sounds like somebody who grew up taking the train, she said. He sounds like Leo when he tells me not to worry. Grant didn't try to arrange his face. He read the father line again, then the soup line, then the sentence about company. I taught him to keep softness behind glass, he said. He built a door and left it open anyway. Nisha slid the notebook back into the sleeve and resealed it with a fresh label. We stop here until Leo is present, she said. We read the rest with him and Director Duarte. We assign his mentor. We activate supports quietly. And we keep this out of the pavilion. Marisol nodded. He'll be at the workshop until 9, she said. If you come, don't wear the building's name on your jacket. Grant almost smiled. Sleeves rolled. Phone off, he said. I can manage that. Nisha checked her watch. We have time to make it uptown before the late shifts start, she said. I'll call ahead so they aren't surprised. Miss Vega, will Leo want you there? Or will he insist you wait at home? He'll want me there until he thinks I'm looking at him, Marisol said. Then he'll tell me to help set chairs so I'm not watching. Good, Nisha said. Bring your hands. We'll bring the ledger. Leave the microphones. Grant looked at the notebook one more time, at the moth with the red wing shaded heavier than the others, at the handwriting that refused to perform. He took a breath that felt like winter air and made a decision that did not belong to a stage. Let's go where the light is, he said. Nisha locked the sleeve, pocketed the device, and opened the door to the corridor where the gala pretended nothing unscripted had happened. The hum of clinking plates reached them and fell away again. The prep room emptied of its proof and filled with its absence. On the steel, a single sentence lingered in 3 minds as they stepped into the hall. We don't save cities, just each other. And some promises, if they are going to hold, have to be kept where nobody claps. Nisha's call reached the front desk before they did. By the time they stepped off the bus on Amsterdam, the garage door at the workshop was rolled up and warm light spilled onto the sidewalk. A hand-painted sign over the entrance read, "Carry light, leave no one." Under it, another, "Consent first, no photos, names stay here." Inside, the reclaimed space hummed. On the left, soldering benches lined a pegboard hung with tools labeled in black marker. Bike repair stands took the center, tires spinning in slow, patient circles, while a teen checked spokes with a spoke key and a tongue held in concentration. A homework corner on the right held battered couches, a milk crate bookshelf, and a whiteboard that said algebra is a group sport. Near the office door, a bulletin board showed photocopies of first paychecks, each with a small moth sticker like a signature. Camila Duarte stepped out, wiping her hands on a rag, hair tied back, eyes alert. "You must be Nisha," she said. Then to Marisol, who already knew. "You beat us on Tuesdays, and you are," she said to Grant, letting the question hang without deference. Grant kept his sleeves rolled, his phone dark. "Grant," he said. "No last name." It landed as intended. "We have 15 minutes before night routes," Camila said. "Rules are on the wall. Adults help or they wait outside." Marisol smiled. "I can help," she said, already scanning for the thing that needed doing. Nisha lifted a folder. "Compliance and verification," she said. "We will be brief and private." Leo was at the bike stands, head down, a loose chain draped across his palms. He glanced up, saw his mother, and grinned, then saw Grant, and schooled his face to neutral. "Ma," he said. "It's okay, I've got it." She kissed his temple anyway and moved toward the sink that dripped into a bucket. She found a wrench, a gasket, and a minute later the drip slowed to a civilized tap. Joy waved from the homework corner. Finch called out from the door schedule. "Red Wing has Route 3 tonight, Leo," he said. "You lead." Leo nodded, wrote his initials on the board, and went back to the chain with the patience of someone who had learned procedure before pride. Nisha and Camilla stepped into the small office, glass half frosted, and closed the door enough to make a room. Marisol stayed in view of Leo and the sink. Grant lingered near the bulletin board and read the names taped under photocopied checks. The smallest amounts felt largest. First paycheck, first verification, first proof that time could turn into something other than worry. Nisha opened the console on her tablet and slid it across for Camilla. "Steward profile for Leo Vega," she said. "Consent is current. We are activating the MetroCard reload and data boost. Mentor is pending." Camilla scanned, nodded once. "Ramos for bikes," she said. "He is firm and kind. He will take the slot." Grant looked up at the ceiling. The heat rattled in old ducts. The door stuck on a raised seam where concrete had cracked and been patched by different hands in different seasons. The contrast with his glass office felt less like shame and more like orientation. Here, things worked because people kept showing up. Camilla opened a metal cabinet and pulled out a notebook with tape on the spine. "You brought log 27, she said. "Good. We'll read it when routes return." She glanced at Grant. "You listen, you don't steer." He nodded. "I can follow." Marisol joined them long enough to sign a small card and tuck it into her wallet. "What is that?" Leo asked, coming over with grease on his fingers. A card that pretends less than it does, Nisha said. Transit and data. Auto reload. No logos. He shrugged as if such things happened every day and tucked it into his back pocket without ceremony. The whiteboard at the door, filled with names. A volunteer mapped routes with dry erase, circles and arrows becoming paths. Camilla gathered the group. Rules, she said. Consent is not one time. You ask again. You walk on the outside by traffic. You are eyes and ears. You don't make it about you. If a situation escalates, you call in. You do not play hero. The Red Wing goes first and comes back. Leo lifted his wrist a little at the phrase and hid the gesture like a secret handshake. Grant found himself breathing with their cadence. The place made sense without polish. It spent money on locks, lights, gloves, bike seats, phone chargers, algebra tutors, not banners. Pride here was a wall of first paychecks, pinned beside a list of kids who got home and texted thanks at 10. He pulled Nisha aside. What do you need that no donor wants to buy? Camilla answered from across the room, without missing the way he tried to whisper. Electrical work to bring the back half to code. An HVAC unit before next winter. A washer and dryer that can handle towels. A commercial sink. 2 paid night supervisors so volunteers are not also parents and disciplinarians. Insurance that doesn't punish honesty. A small legal retainer for when a teen needs an adult in a room that isn't fair. Stipends for Red Wing leads, so the kids who do the most aren't also the ones who burn out first. Grant nodded, counting costs against statements that had never held anything this obvious. And what should I not offer? A photographer, Camilla said. A plaque, naming rights, a ribbon cutting. He almost laughed. He did not. Done, he said. He took out a pen and wrote a list the way he had not written one since his first company fit in a backpack. He added a line at the top. No press. If it appears anywhere, I cancel it. Out on the floor, Marisol arranged rides, texted 3 parents, and posted a note on the board about a boil water advisory. She patched a second leak with tape until a real fix was possible. She told a joke badly, and a 9-year-old corrected her and stopped crying. Leo wiped his hands and joined Joy by the door. Red Wing, Joy said. Go first, come back. He grinned and saluted with 2 fingers. Grant watched the door close behind the first route. The room exhaled. Nisha checked a timesheet, printed a pair of forms, and slid them to Camilla. Mentor assignment, she said. Backup assignment, she said, sending him a look. He signed where she tapped. The contrast landed plain in his chest. Downtime in the pavilion would be about lighting and cameras. Downtime here was sockets and snacks. At the foundation, he had called infrastructure unglamorous. Here, it was dignity. Camilla looked at him a long second. If you mean it, she said. Show up when invoices come due, not just tonight. If you mean it, take the hit when your board asks why a garage matters. If you mean it, keep the lantern off your LinkedIn. I mean it, he said. The sentence felt like a promise to a person and to a place. Nisha checked her watch. Route's back in an hour. We can read the rest of the log then, with Leo. After that, your world will demand a statement. Decide now what you will say and what you will refuse to say. Grant glanced at the list in his pocket and the moth sticker on the bulletin board. He understood the real cost was not money. It was appetite. It was choosing a ledger that didn't clap. Tomorrow, a boardroom would want optics. Tonight, a garage had shown him operations. He answered the only way that matched the room. We fund the boring things first, he said, and we keep our names off the door. The roots would return, the log would open, and the questions would change shape. The next room would not smell like solder and soup. It would test whether his promise could stand up under lights. Morning turned the Mercer boardroom into a museum of certainty. Glass, a long table, deals. The city moved outside. Inside, numbers waited to be defended. Grant sat at the head with a folder. Nisha took a seat near the end. The chair cleared his throat. Emergency session noted. You asked for the first hour. Grant didn't reach for polish. Last night, I saw our name in a room that works without us. I humiliated a worker, then learned a program we fund is stronger than the building that houses it. I'm proposing policy that matches that strength. A director in a navy tie tilted his head. Sentiment as strategy. Operations, Grant said. 1. A living wage floor across all service teams and contracted vendors in our properties. Same benefits, eligibility, Health, paid sick time, predictable schedules. Vendors who refuse lose contracts. 2. Paid volunteer hours, 2 hours per month, tracked and trained. Training designed by the workshop and Lantern Line staff, not by us. 3. A permanent Lantern Line fund, tutors, transit, utility relief, certification grants, night supervisors, safety gear, legal retainer, seated at 1% of quarterly operating profit. 4. Ink-friendly dress code where safety allows. Talent isn't measured by sleeves. 5. Transparency, monthly metrics on turnover, incident rates, client retention, time to fill, wage outcomes, volunteer hours used, post internally, summarize externally. The CFO lifted a palm. Cost, 70 to 90 basis points of margin compression in year 1, he said. Vendor rates will climb. Analysts will say softness. We absorb it, Grant said. I pledge my entire cash bonus to seed the fund. I accept a temporary hit and the headlines that will chase it. Another director folded his hands. Precedent. Fund 1 garage. Get a line out the door. Nisha answered. Criteria, not charisma. Neutral eligibility. Documented needs, verifiable outcomes. Privacy. No cameras, no donor walk-alongs. General counsel tapped her pen. Keep it neutral. Wage floors must be enforceable. No identifying recipients without consent. Formal apology mitigates risk from the gala incident. Communications leaned in. Center accountability, then policy. A numbers-forward feature can follow. Not first, Nisha said. Apology first. No tours. The chair glanced at Grant. And your role. I'll take the training and serve as a backup mentor until we build capacity, he said. No cameras. Phone off. I'll also issue a public apology. No justification. I laughed at a worker who named a truth. I was wrong. We'll publish the policies. Navy tie snorted. You'll crater our quarter to satisfy guilt. I'll invest in retention, safety, and reputation I can look in the eye, Grant said. Short-term margins versus long-term mission is a choice. We pick mission and show the math. The CFO nodded toward his sheet. Upsides are plausible. Lower turnover, fewer incidents, better client retention. Hard to price, easy to measure over 4 quarters. General counsel added, prohibit photography of volunteers and minors. For paid hours, make volunteers employees. Extend workers' comp. It costs, but it's clean. Communications sighed. The apology will trend anyway. Better to be early and plain. Grant slid the folder forward. Draft policies, apology, vendor addenda. Amendments that improve function, not optics. The chair nodded slowly. Vote. Hands rose. Some sure, some slow. 2 withheld that smelled like spin. Plain, he told communications. No heroics. No inspired by. We apologize to staff, to Miss Vega by name if she consents, and to the room we turned into a stage. We'll clear consent, communications said. We'll publish the wage floor and the fund the same day. We'll keep your name out of the Lantern Line unless policy requires it. Keep it out, Grant said. The Lantern isn't a brand. Nisha added logistics. Managers briefed today. HR opens benefits enrollment and updates schedules. Procurement issues, vendor amendments. Non-compliant vendors get 30 days to cure. Finance opens the fund and installs disbursement rules. Legal drafts the no-photo language and workers' comp extension. Paid volunteer hours start next month after training. The chair pushed back his chair. You're gonna take heat. Grant finally smiled without showing teeth. I've taken heat for less worthwhile things. Navy tie rose. If the street punishes us, this is on you. That's where accountability belongs, Grant said. On me. The room emptied. Nisha stayed, gathering drafts. You know this will cost you friends. Then I'll keep the ones worth having, Grant said. He stepped into the hallway and texted Camilla a photo of the signed motion. No letterhead, just ink. She replied with a thumbs up and a list of invoices due. Communications handed him the final apology. He read it once more. I used protocol to protect my comfort, not our people. I'm sorry. We will repair harm privately and change policy publicly. Hold me to the numbers. He sent it to legal with one edit. Remove the phrase, learning moment. Keep the part where I say wrong. He faced the glass where the city did not wait for his speech. Numbers would move, headlines would guess, investors would call. Employees would decide whether to believe him. In the end, either the boring things would get paid or the promises would evaporate under lights. The balance sheet and the ledger in a garage would have to agree on reality. By spring, the pavilion's echo had changed. Applause still arrived on schedule, but it no longer aimed at mirrors. It bounced off policies that did work in quiet rooms. Inside the company dashboards, lines bent the right way. Entry-level turnover down 30%. Incident reports down by a quarter. Client retention up 2 points. Time to fill roles cut in half. A business column ran a chart beside a photo of a mop and called the shift operational sense with human dividends. The board still asked about basis points. HR answered with people who stayed. At the Lantern Line Fund, the money moved like water through clean pipes. Metro cards reloaded on time. Tutors met kids in classrooms and on video after dinner. Utility relief arrived before shutoff. Safe walk shifts got filled without begging. Apprenticeships in bike repair, soldering, and basic electrical filled fast, with 2 graduates placed at a local shop that cared more about hands than resumes. The boring things got paid, and then turned into better nights. Leo's grades lifted from effort to ease. Algebra became something he could teach. He started a night ride repair crew on Saturdays. 3 teens on refurbished bikes, headlamps low, tool rolls strapped under seats, patching flats and tightening brakes for anyone flagged by a moth sticker on a window. He kept a ledger in his phone. Jobs done, names not posted, routes extended because a chain stopped squeaking. Joy teased him about falling in love with grease. He shrugged and grinned and led the next loop. At the workshop, Camilla tacked up a new list under the paycheck board. Microgrant council applicants. Leo proposed it and wrote the rule that made adults smile. Youth vote first. Adults break ties only when the math breaks. The council began meeting on Thursdays with pizza and spreadsheets, deciding between a certification exam fee and a replacement phone for a lead whose screen cracked on a night route. They learned to say later without saying no, and to say yes with receipts. Grant showed up on Mondays at 6, sleeves rolled, phone off as promised. He took the volunteer training like everyone else and passed the de-escalation module on his second try. Ramos kept the mentor slot for bikes. Grant took a backup pair of students for the Microgrant Council. 1 hour a month, not managing, only mentoring. Questions, not instructions. Examples, not speeches. He spent the rest of his hour changing bulbs and carrying boxes because the list on the office whiteboard never ended. The apology he issued months earlier had stopped trending. The policies had not. Vendors adapted or left. The wage floor held. 2 executives resigned. 3 managers blossomed in the space where fear had been. A new employee survey included a question that mattered. Do you think leadership would choose safety over optics on a bad day? The yes line moved. Late one evening, after a route returned safe and the last dish dried, a new text appeared on Grant's phone. Evan, heard you stopped repainting things and started wiring them. Proud of that. Grant typed and deleted twice, then chose small. Grant, we're paying the boring bills. You were right about the lantern. Evan, meet next week. No cameras. The workshop at 5. Grant took a breath like winter air and finally said yes. Off hours. The garage smelled like solder and citrus. Chairs were stacked, bikes hung by their saddles, and the whiteboard carried tomorrow's lists in small, neat letters. Marisol handed Nisha a thermos and a hug. Gratitude without ceremony. You kept it private, she said. You kept it clean. Nisha smiled. You built the trust. We just didn't break it. Grant stepped in with sleeves rolled, the lantern visible without apology. He set a box on the bench, a torque wrench set, safety glasses, gloves, brake cables, a receipt attached, and already paid. No banners, he said. Tools, not headlines. Camilla checked the list, nodded once, and pointed at the back room. We still need shelving, she said. He laughed. That I can lift. They worked 10 quiet minutes, wood and brackets becoming order. When the shelf stood level, Grant looked around at the room that had rewritten his calendar. Carry light, he said, the words from Evan's log landing like an oath. Leave no one, Marisol finished, and the echoes sounded like a promise shared rather than a brand. Nisha drew the door halfway down. Out on the sidewalk, dusk gathered like a soft crowd. Inside, Camilla taped a new card to the bulletin board. Microgrant Council meeting moved to Thursday. Bring receipts. Leo stuck his head in, helmet crooked, grin unstoppable. "Ma," he said, "we patched 16 flats, and nobody fell." He spotted the lantern on Grant's wrist and just nodded, as if to say, "Good, you remembered." Grant wiped his hands and took a photo of the updated shop sign. The hand-painted letters touched up, but unchanged. He sent it to Evan with no caption. A dot pulsed, then a reply. A single moth emoji and 3 words. Proud of them. He let out a breath he had been holding for years. "Keep it boring," he said. Half to the room, half to himself. "Pay the bills, change the bulbs, carry the light. Come back." Camilla killed the overheads, and the lanterns in the drawing seemed to glow longer in the dark. "If this reached you, look for the names behind the polish. Say them. Hold a door. Fund a bus pass. Share this with someone who thinks decency and policy can't sit at the same table. Follow for part 2. The lantern-lined playbook shows how teams, managers, neighbors build dignity into daily leadership. No cameras, light,